Welcome to Heart Stories, where we dive deep into the questions that connect us all. Each week, we explore real, honest topics that often linger in our hearts and minds. Join us for an intimate conversation that invites vulnerability and connection as we share our stories and discover the beauty in our shared experiences. Let's embark on this journey together. Heart to heart. Welcome, everybody, to another episode. I'm here with my co-host, the man of the hour.
Episode.
The second man of the hour.
Yeah,
Episode 11.
Episode 11.
We got
Special.
a,
Special episode.
you know what I'm
Special.
saying? We got a big time guest. Alex, our guy. Welcome.
Hold on. Alex, what's your last name?
Sanchez.
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 Okay,
But
okay, okay.
officially Sanchez Hernandez. So
Sanchez Hernandez.
Okay. All right. Just wonder.
But Alex, go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit for our guests and tell us a little bit about your time before MacU and how you got to MacU.
okay. So my name is Alex. I work in the admissions office. I've only been here for about 9 months, so everything is still pretty new to me. Before I came to Oklahoma City, I was in Wichita Falls, Texas. So for people who don't know where that's at, it's right under Lawton and in the middle of nowhere. So it's not like an exciting place to live. But I was living in Wichita Falls, Texas. I was working for Chick-fil-A. And so I was the executive director of development. So I did a lot of training, onboarding, interviews, things like that. So after my time with Chick-fil-A was over, I looked for something different. My apartment lease was up. Decided going to move back to Oklahoma City. Mackie was hiring, and so I applied and got the job on July 1st. So been here since.
Cool.
I know what Wichita Falls is. We played them in high school.
Oh, yeah.
I think we talked about that.
Ryder or Old High?
Both.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I played right. I remember playing Ryder. Was this really good kid in my freshman and sophomore year. I played all high. Couldn't stand them.
Not many people can stand
All high.
Oh, is it like three Wichita Falls
There's
schools?
3.
Yeah, 3.
Well, now there's 2, so they shrunk down.
Yeah, they shrunk down, but yeah, I couldn't stand old high.
But for this week's topic, we'll be talking about the importance of community. This is something I feel like is big nowadays. Everybody is searching for identity and groups and people that they can get along with. So I feel like this topic for you today, I feel like you'll be able to have a lot of insight and we'll be able to learn something from you and be able to talk about a little bit something deeper. Our first question, though,
Let's do it.
define community and what it means to you.
To me,
For you.
let's see. To me, community has to be, if I were to define it, it's a group of people or a few people that know you really well, and despite knowing you really well, love you really well. Right? Because there's like your friends, but then for me, it's like the people that really know you, but then still really love you. Because there's a lot of people who know you, but they don't really, they like know you, say hi, walk past them. How are you? Good. But for me, it's someone you know well, the group of people you know well and still love. And that's like including their flaws, their failures, and their shortcomings.
It's kind of funny how you talked about that how are you? There was a period of time where I really didn't like that question because like we would pass through hallways and stuff like that and we always ask that question, but I feel like when passing like that, you really don't have the time to truly answer that question. So I'm like, I just kind of say, what's up? How you, not even how you doing. I don't even like that sometimes, but.
Is it crazy to say, like, for a while, I couldn't stand small talk. Like you said, like I just didn't. It never felt genuine to me sometimes. I mean, you can kind of get surprised with some people because they actually like can sit down and have a conversation if you have time to do it. But like small talk, like just passing by in the hallways or at the store, it just kind of just felt weird to me. Like it just didn't seem genuine and like real. Like it didn't feel like real love or real, if I should say. It just felt like I'm doing it so this person won't look at me any differently.
Yeah.
Instead of just wanting to do it.
Yeah. I agree. It can get pretty awkward. Let's see. Were there any key moments where you seen community was important in your own personal life And if not, where did you become aware that
Okay.
community was important?
So there were the 5 years I lived in Wichita Falls. A lot happened, right? So I really grew up in Norman, really close to OU. Went to Norman High School, graduated from a school here in Oklahoma. So this is what I'd consider home. At the beginning of 2020, my dad had a job offer from Mardell. That's where he works for Mardell Hobby Lobby. He had a job offer to be the manager of a store in Wichita Falls, Texas. So he would be in charge of it. Right now, at that time, he was both an assistant, but also a manager. Like they just kind of were equals, but they weren't assistant managers. They assisted each other. It was kind of a weird dynamic. So he gets the opportunity to do that. We're at IHOP, and by we, I mean me, brother, sister, mom. And he calls us and is like, what do you guys think about moving to Texas? Well, I'm from Oklahoma. Why on God's green earth would I want to move to Texas? Right? Like just a traditional, like classic OU versus Texas. And so I was like, I don't really love the idea. It's the beginning of a pandemic. We don't know what's going to happen. From that phone call in 3 weeks, we moved to Wichita Falls. So we moved from January into February into March. And we are probably, 3 weeks into COVID. And so it's just kind of the beginning stages of what's happening. But when we moved to Wichita Falls, we didn't know anybody. So we moved to Wichita Falls, Texas at the beginning of a pandemic and didn't know a soul in Texas. And the one thing that I knew that I needed was someone to walk through that time with me. Now, you'll have siblings, right?
Yeah.
There's only so much that you can handle when it comes to your siblings,
Yeah.
right? Like you love them, they're your best friend, they're going to be there for you forever. But at the same time, when you're locked up and you're told you can't leave, you can't do this, you can't go here, you can't live life, it's really hard. So I'm watching an NBA game and, Rudy Gobert touches all the microphones, playing at the Thunder game, and everybody gets canceled. That game gets canceled. And now it's really starting to affect people. March Madness gets canceled. All these things just start happening. And I thought I'll be fine. But you guys have known me long enough to know, like, I have to be around people. And that's how I get a lot of my energy. But I have no one. August rolls around, 2020. So we've just been living these several months in a lot of unknown, a lot of uncertainty. I didn't have a job for the first 2 months that I was in Texas. So I started working for Chick-fil-A, and that started to help. But at Chick-fil-A, we're wearing gloves. We have masks on. It's 110 degrees outside. We have to wear a mask. So we finally hit this point in time where things start to open back up. And here in Oklahoma City and here at Mackey, a lot of people go to the Gathering at Crossings, right? So they go to this young adult service. In Wichita Falls, it's called The Bridge. And so I follow them on Instagram. Everybody's talking about The Bridge, and they have an open gym night. And I was like, I haven't touched a basketball, like played, in months because there's not a gym open. And this is my one opportunity to find people. So I went. I show up to First Baptist Church in Wichita Falls, and it's a massive church. It's one of those churches when you walk in and you're like, this isn't the place for me. Like, this is not my
like
place.
mega church. Almost.
Mega church, right? Like, they have the main campus. They have 2 other campuses. This is huge, especially for Wichita Falls. I go meet a couple people. They're like, oh, you're here to play with us? Yes. And I meet one person. His name is Josiah. He lives in Tennessee now. One of my best friends. Invites me to get coffee with him. But remember, I just came in with this horrible attitude of like, this isn't the place for me. I'm going to come. I'm going to hoop. I'm going to go home. That wasn't the case. Josiah was like, hey, let's get coffee. Let's like exchange contact. And we did. So in that time of getting a new job, going to play basketball, I found community of what I didn't know that I needed. I knew I needed something, but I was like, I'll find it somewhere else. But in Wichita Falls, you'll find community in 2 places if you're not from there, right? I guess we'll call it 3. Go into university, Midwestern State University, a bar, or a church. Those are the 3 places that are closed, that are super social, and you'll find somebody. So I wasn't going to the bar. I wasn't at MSU. I was taking classes at Mackey online. So this was it. Church was going to have to be the answer. So I decided I'm going to go to Coffee with Josiah. I met the college pastor. He's one of my mentors. Like that period of time, that year from March of 2020 to August of 2020 was super defining, and knowing I need people around me to help me get through the rest of the next 4 years that I was in Texas. We didn't know anybody. Finally met somebody. Josiah helped me get plugged in. I became a small group leader, got super involved in the church. It became a real important year of my life. But in that moment, I knew community has to get me through. Has to. Especially for a person like me, super extroverted.
Did that end up becoming your church home out there?
Yeah, so I was an intern in the college ministry, ended up working in the youth ministry, and then became the middle school pastor at that church. So I went from this horrible attitude, don't want to go, just going to play, I'm going to leave, it's not going to be worth my time, to working at the church that I had a bad attitude about.
That's crazy.
It's kind of crazy, 5 years later, hearing people's perspective, not perspective on COVID, like what they went through. Because like me and Mike were similar. Like I remember I was going on spring break for high school my senior year and feeling this ultimate community with my classmates, knowing like, okay, this is the last time. Like I grew up with these people. This is like the last few weeks. To not seeing most of them, I haven't seen them since. And it's like, I was thinking like the same thing, like, man, this is kind of weird. Like I came up here for my visit and no one was on campus. I was working out with a mask. Coach G was wearing a mask. It was just like a whole weird situation. Like half the lights in the gym are off because no one's been in there in weeks.
Yeah.
And then like that one that you deciding to go out and try this one new thing kind of just branched off into a new thing. I just think that you kind of like, for me, like you kind of like let the community just join another one. And you didn't even realize at the time, like,
for sure.
And you were kind of just feeling like alone. And it just meant like COVID did numbers to us. And that just hearing that was just, I related to that a lot.
Yeah.
Tangent. But the other day I was watching Netflix and I watched that Joplin tornado documentary. Is it called Twister?
I see it. I've seen it. Yeah, it's called Twister. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, bro, I was watching it the other day. I couldn't, like, you were talking about graduation. There were some kids, some of the main cast of the documentary, they were graduating high school. Like they just stepped out of graduation, like just grabbed diplomas, walked off the stage, and then category 5 just like this, that quick. I'm like, I can't even imagine something that detrimental and destructive happening that fast on a day that ultimately, like, you'll remember, like, sort of for the rest of your life.
Right.
Like, you'll remember graduating and walking the stage. You might not remember all the details, but, like, you'll remember that day, and they had to deal with that, like, as soon as you step out the building, category 5. I'm like, geez. And then some of the pictures, like, you can see, like, what that tornado did to that area, and they got tore up. I was like, goodness gracious. But I bet they probably got closer as a community after that. Those who
you kind of have to though,
yeah.
like, because like everyone's going through the same thing. So like,
I think that is an interesting point though, how it takes tragedy for us to get the closest. Like I'm glad that was the case, that they got closer. I'm assuming, but it's almost funny how that's the only time it seems like we can all come together and be on the same page and be like, we got to get this done. Like, we got to do this together. It seems like the only time that happens, at least in my mind.
No, absolutely. In 2012, when this big tornado hit Moore, it like took out a lot of homes, elementary schools. I was a freshman in high school, and our church decided we're going to go like serve food, try to do the best we can to clean up a little bit. And you see like cities and different states like come to help. And it's like, at the end of the day, we're really not as different as we think we are, right? Like, there's actually a lot more similarities. So when you see those similarities, it's like, man, that person is just like me. And what stops me from experiencing that? One state line, a couple 100 miles. But for COVID, we all experienced it. It brought people closer than maybe we would have thought that it did. But like you said, tragedy sometimes brings us together, right? Like at funerals, everybody's like, man, I love you and I miss you and we should hang out sometime. It's like, yeah, we probably should because, I mean, God forbid that we die young, right? And you don't want people to gather at your funeral and be like, oh man, the last time I saw you was at the last funeral. What?
Yeah.
But tragedy does bring people together as a community and it builds it, unfortunately.
That's kind of crazy that you said that because, like, I'm a very introverted person, and you said COVID affected us all. But when we went in lockdown, I was feeling like I loved it the first like 2 weeks. I'm like, all right, this is kind of like haven't seen my friends in a while. I haven't played basketball in forever. Like, I need like something like new, some people to talk to. So like, I was realizing like, yeah, we're not meant to be alone. Like, we need people for sure. And then, like, I would get some joy, playing in the game, just playing the game all night with my friends, just hearing their voices, we talk. But they're all doing the same thing I'm doing, just kind of just waking up, getting on the game, chilling. It's just, but I was like, man, I need to go hoop. And thankfully, we had like a little small church in my town that one of my friends owns. So it would just be like us 8, 9, go play, have a good time. But like, I felt that like need and yearning for community.
Yeah.
I felt that.
It's big time. So you kind of maybe a little bit touched on it, but let's see, how do you personally find community now that you are an adult, past college and living in your parents' house?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what's key to that is to find out where you're going to find it, right? Like we said when I was in Texas, right? You can find it in 3 places for sure, whether you're going to school, at a bar, or at a church. And I'm sure there's more places you can find them. I'm sure you could go play pickup at the YMCA. You'll find a group of people that you're like, oh, this is my group. This is my people. But for me, it was having to go out of those spaces of maybe what's comfortable to me to now what's uncomfortable. And so here's something I kind of learned along the way. It's like when it comes to, I'm 27, so people around my age and even a little bit younger, we struggle with communicating. We struggle with vocalizing what the other person is trying to say. So it's easier sometimes to text, right? So here's an example. I've gone on 2 dates where the person was an awesome texter. They're great. And then in person, it bombed. I was like, now you don't have anything to say? Like, now you want to like stop saying something? You know what I mean? Have you ever experienced that, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
it's different, right?
It's a little different for us because it's more like if I was texting someone here and I would see him in person, like in a cab, I'm like, oh, this is way different.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like the same person,
Right?
Yeah, so I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
So I felt that, like I was like, well, this is different, right? And so, in a sense, right, my community was built out of going to church. That was the case for me, and that's not the case for everybody. So you have to get creative in those things, right? Like, how do I find those people? Where are my people? Because not all people are your people,
Yeah.
right? Like, not all your people are your people. Just because they think you're cool doesn't mean that they're good for you, and just because you guys get along doesn't mean that you guys should be best friends. So for me, having to go out of those places of like, I'm gonna have to put myself in a little bit of uncomfortable situations. So maybe it is going to a church and joining a small group and talking to people I've never talked to before. Those are uncomfortable. But if you don't put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you'll never grow from the things that are holding you back from achieving what you want.
So put us on a little bit of game. What qualities do you now look for in a community that you might not have valued before?
Vulnerability is a big one.
Oh,
I'm not a vulnerable person, right? So like, and there's some things I will share, right? I don't care about talking about my time in Wichita Falls. Like, if anybody was like, oh, where should I go in Texas? I'm not like, Wichita Falls. Go see like the world's biggest skyscraper. Like, that's not what I'm pointing people towards, right? But vulnerability is a big one. And I would say that kind of pairs with transparency. So how can I let somebody into my life that can speak to the areas I'm struggling in or places that are a little bit uncomfortable, right? So Josiah was able to do that for me. He was able to say, hey, how's your week been? And it goes back to that, like, oh, it's been good. But we're sitting down together at a coffee shop. Like, we have time. He said, no, how have you really been? So he had this list, and he would ask me very deep personal questions. about things that are like not any of his business. But why does he ask? Because he cares, and because he knows that by being vulnerable, he can help me better as a friend, as a brother in Christ, as just helping me through life. And at the end of the list of questions, like question 7 was, did you lie to me about any of these?
Hmm.
So it was a little bit of like, it wasn't calling you out, right? It's different to say, oh, Terrence, you lied to me. No. It's like, hey, did you? Is there any chance you were dishonest? In that case, Josiah's calling me up, because there was times that I did. Because why do I want to be vulnerable with him? So I didn't value that before. And after those experiences where I really felt the deep sense of community, I was like, vulnerability is important. It's something that I have to value now, because Timothy Ateek is a pastor in Dallas, and he says people strive to be fully loved and fully known, but that comes with vulnerability.
Hold on. I kind of want to ask this kind of what if question, but say you were in that situation again and they opened up to you first about certain things in their life. Do you think them doing that would make you want to do the same thing, or how do you go about that when people open up to you?
Yeah, for me specifically, I would say it is easier for me to then be more honest with them and to be a little bit more vulnerable, because they just kind of laid out their heart to you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not necessarily the craziest thing, but to some degree they do. They pour out their heart to you, and it's like, here's something like I don't share with people, but I need your help with, or I'm going to give you insight on. So then I will be honest with them, because then their struggle, their concern, their worry, their whatever it is that they're being vulnerable about, then I can speak to that and say, you know what, I haven't dealt with the exact same thing, but here's something in my life that might be similar, and how I've been able to come through, or that we're struggling with together. So now, together, we can get through it and find more answers, because their experience is going to be different from mine. C.S. Lewis says that the best friendships were made or are made by when someone goes, oh, me too.
Hey, I might have to. C.S. Lewis said that?
C.S. Lewis, right? So he's like, when you go through something, you're like, oh, me too. And now you feel like, oh, man, like they have gone through the same thing. They almost, in a sense, get me. Or I remember fully loved and fully known. I'm a little more known based off of shared experiences. And community really is just a bunch of shared experiences that we bring together and walk through life with.
Heart to heart.
Heart to heart.
I like that. I like that quote. I like that a lot. You can go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I mean, that's good. Like, that's a big one.
I thought you were about to cook. So before that encounter with your friend Josiah, how did you, I don't know if you touched on it a little bit, but how did you view vulnerability growing up, and how did your community growing up view vulnerability as well?
Was it encouraged?
I would say no. Like, it's almost like a sense of not necessarily weakness, but you're letting out parts of you that you shouldn't, right? It's like, well, let's shine a light on this. And you're like, oh, nope, not going to do that, right? Am I being fake? That's the next battle, right? If I'm not vulnerable, am I being authentic? And maybe that's not always right. So here's the thing that some people run into. It's like, you ever meet the people who want to tell you their whole life story? You're like, first of all, I didn't ask. Second, I don't care, right? So like, you meet those people every once in a while. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is finding those people, talking through it. But in my experiences, it wasn't something I was good at, something I didn't want to do either. Because who wants to really share those parts of their life that they might be embarrassed about, right? That was one of the heart-to-heart questions. Like, what is something in your past that you might be ashamed of?
You want to know something? Professor Harris, I was in the store, and he walked by the sign one day on the way to lunch, and I watched him because I wanted to see how he was going to take the question, because I knew what type of question it was already. And then he looked at it. He read it kind of slow. He kind of like went across like this, like, what would I want to do in my... And he kind of like, I ain't answering that. Walked off. I was like, dang, Professor Harris is like that. But so let me ask you this then.
Hold on. Is it the same part of the same question or?
Yeah, it's still vulnerability.
Yeah, because I want to talk about. You think it's more like us being like men,
Mm,
like growing up like that? Because I feel like all the mentors or people in my life,
Yeah.
the men, like kind of enforced that into me.
yeah.
You think it was partly because of that, or?
Yeah, I would say so. One of the things I think I grabbed this idea from of not being vulnerable and to have this look that I'm really strong was partially from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
My dad is not a vulnerable person, and my dad, he's a pastor and he's pastored 2 churches, and it's kind of a unique situation. But for years, my dad smoked cigarettes. And so that was something he was ashamed of, but he never addressed it with us. He never talked about it. He never put it out there. And there was one time where he started telling me about how hard it was to fight that. And he was being very vulnerable. And he could tell that I was taken away by it. Hold on a second. Like, dad's like really like laying his heart out. And he even said, like, I know we don't talk about this very often, but like, here's something you should know. And so I do think that mentors, people of authority, people that we look up to, they usually don't share their flaws. They usually don't do those things because we're men. We don't do that. We don't share our feelings. We don't talk through those things. But how unhealthy is that? Right? Like it really is.
Yeah.
And because of that, now we have this front like, I got to be tough. I got to be strong. I got to not act like or not show that I have these faults and failures. So it does become a kind of a gender gap in
Mhm.
some ways. The church that I worked for, they were not vulnerable. It was a great church. They did a lot of good things, but the pastor never really talked about his life. He never talked about the things
Never.
never,
Not one
one
message.
time. Did he include like me in my life? And it would have been fun things. Like it would have been like things that are people like, oh, cool.
Or
But it wasn't like, oh, me and my wife had this hard spot in our marriage and talk about marriage in that sermon. Or, as a young man, I faced this. He wasn't. None of the pastors were, except for one, my mentor, Tim. He was an alcoholic, and he would say, I'm a recovering alcoholic. But when you hear that, you're like, hold on a second. Like, should you be up there? No, he was sober for years, but he knew that was something he was going to continue to battle as life went on. It's hard to fight those addictions.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, like part of it has to do with being guys, being men, having those masculine mentors that are like, this is how you should act.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually was going to be my next question while we were talking about it, but you answered about your dad. What was your mom's vulnerability like?
She was very open and honest, like sometimes too open and honest, where I'm like, whoa, like, let's time out. Like, I'm not ready for this talk. But she was very honest. She was very open. She did, she had me when she was 16 years old. So there has to be a lot of vulnerability of that, right? Like we're a unique combination. She has me when she's 16 years old. She has to grow up very fast. There's some things that she talked about to me like very soon that I was like, whoa, like the talk. Like, hey, like I know that I had you when I was really young. So here's what you should know. Like if you're gonna go out and start dating and be one-on-one with a girl, here's something you should consider. Be safe. My dad didn't really have that talk with me. Came from my mom. So it's kind of different, right? My dad had like the very generic, like the birds and the bees, boys and girls, right?
Birds
but my
and the
mom
bees,
was the
birds
one
and
that
bees.
really put it in. Like she was very vulnerable. She was very open, and I could ask her anything, and she'll open very honestly.
Huh. You got a question? Because something just came to my mind.
No. I was listening.
If you don't mind answering, since that was the situation with you and your mom, what did community look like for her during that time? Because I know sometimes that can be like very frowned upon and things like that. So what did community look like for her?
Specifically when she had me at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
My biological dad is not the best human being on planet Earth, and I really don't even know him. But we actually look a lot alike.
Really?
Yes. So there was no doubt, like, oh, he's a Sanchez, like, and it belonged to my bio dad. When my mom gave birth to me, she gave birth in a hospital by herself.
By
That's sad.
herself.
By herself. Her, the doctors, a newborn, 16, 17 years old, by herself. Part of it was because, like you said, like it was frowned upon. It was something that I was like, that's clearly a mistake. After some probably hard conversation, things that I really haven't asked about, my aunts, my mom's sisters, and her mom rallied around her, and she had some really good friends that just provided for her and helped along the way. Being 16 and 17 years old, like that's hard. You know, people were 16 and 17 years old 5 years ago when COVID started, and you would never imagine those people having babies.
Yeah.
She's 16, 17 years old, having a baby, having to learn how to raise a child, and just having her family to rally around her. So her community was really a lot of her family, but some friends that were key people that were like, I really know you. Like, hey, you had a baby, you're 16. It doesn't get more vulnerable than that. It's not something you can hide. But despite that, where people might see that as a flaw or a failure, I love you because of it. So she has some friends that have been friends for years that have known me since I was a newborn. So without that community, I think my mom would have had a very different experience.
That's big time. Wow. I think those qualities that you mentioned about the people who stepped up for your mom, I think I got so blessed that like a lot of the friends that I have now that I call my friends all have those qualities. And I shared those qualities with them, and we all do that for each other. Like that's so important with community, because one of the most popular, well, I don't want to say popular, but one of the most common stories that comes up in my mind in the Bible when it comes to community is I believe it was either Abraham or Moses, but essentially the Israelites were in battle with the Amalekites, and was it Joshua? I can't remember. It was two individuals. It might have been Abraham. No, it might have been Moses. Essentially, like whenever his arms were raised during the battle, the Israelites were winning. But as soon as his arms started to come down, immediately start losing. Yeah. I'm like, this story paints the picture of what community really does for an individual. So like it then puts in my mind what and who are those people that I can rely on. And I think also on top of that, like I can look at it like who's for me, but also at the same time, I feel like as Christians, like we had to ask ourselves that question of like, who am I doing that for as well? Like, it's not just like one-sided type of thing. Like, who's holding me up? No. It's this, who are you holding up as well? And so like, once I seen that story, I was like, yeah, like community is extremely important. I can't remember what book that's in.
Yeah.
But,
it's Moses, and he's the one.
Moses, yes.
And so they come and lift up his arms. And you guys remember, like, from the beginning of time, like, God creates the heavens and the earth, and there's this huge, miracle of life on earth. And he goes through 7 days of creating, 6 days of creating, 1 day of resting, but all these days, and God creates man. And for the very first time in the entire creation story, God says something isn't good. Remember what that was?
Very good.
It was very good, but there's something specific that I'm looking for.
He said it earlier. Not supposed to be alone.
You're not supposed to be alone. Yeah, you did say that.
Mm-hmm.
So God said, everything is good. Man is very good. But God saw that the man was alone, and that's not good. So currently I live by myself, and I have a dog. She looks like Sally from the Scraper Center. A little thinner, a little cuter. It's cool to have my dog with me, but that doesn't fill the void of what I need long term, right? So Adam is in this brand new world, lots of animals, lots of trees, lots of food, but it's not good enough. And he names all the animals. And it wasn't until he found his one true companion that was going to be the community he was going to have for the rest of his life. So yes, in the long term, like that's more relationship ish, right? But at the same time, you notice that there's a need for people. So let's think about that for a second, like the need for people. When I started listening to the podcast, I noticed a common theme in the first few episodes. It was the summer. In the summer, the Wi-Fi went out. And what did that do for everybody?
Brought us together.
It brought you together. So in those moments, and as hard as summer might have been, and as crazy as the experience was, what you guys realize is like, to get us through this, I need community. Because Wi-Fi goes out. Now what? Like, you're going to get your shoes on and go run? No. There's only so many times you can go to the gym and, shoot around.
Yeah.
But now you have each other. That's what you got. But what left you longing for a little bit more was a little bit more community. Those moments you'll probably never forget. Hanging out with, this person and that person in the room, in this setting, where you're forced to disconnect and now know them. So it was community that brought you from the summertime to survive what the summer was. Being hours away from home, right? UV was a part of that. UV's from South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys, that community came together and helped you get through it. The community came together to lift Moses' arms up. God knew people need each other.
Kind of make a point to what you said earlier about us being more similar than we realized. And like you said, when the Wi-Fi went out, we were all like, I can't sit on my phone in my room all day, so just go outside and talk. Yeah. And I was like talking like I said, UV, Mike, Enzo, all these dudes. I'm like Tish, Hayden, Gus, all we're just sitting outside. I'm like, I'm realizing like, man, like I can relate to a lot of things these dudes have gone through, and even like share some of the same hobbies and interests just from doing that, like going out there. And I just think like I told the story before, like me deciding to go out there one time out there, came back to got food, kind of like brought me back. Like, okay, it's like, okay, I'll be okay. Just keep some people around me in my life and I'll be okay. Like I sat out there for 2 hours and we talked about everything.
Yeah.
Just everything. Just eating our food, other people were cooking, just trying to figure out a way to get through the day. So I just listening to you just kind of hit me thinking back to the summer.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, that those things like meals bring people together, like the one time of the day. I think about how busy like schedules are, but there's one time of the day that everybody's going to pause. It's dinner. Lunch is usually on the go. Things got to go fast. I got to get to the next thing. I got to move on. But when you get to sit down for a second and to listen to one another, that changes everything. Yeah. Like it makes you slow down for a second. But community is best built when you slow down for just a second.
Yeah, you're not lying. So for me growing up, this was like normal, but like as I've met more people, I saw how abnormal this is, especially here in America. But growing up, my parents, like before I started the trend of us graduating and leaving the house, when we were all in the house, all 7 of us, every single dinner, we all had to go sit at the table together. Like we all were in our chairs. They turned the TV off and we literally had to like talk and like see what each other's days, and sometimes we didn't want to be there. There were a lot of times we were laughing at each other and things like that. So but that was just normal for me. But then I would meet certain people on campus and they were like, man, I ate dinner in my room and I never ate with my parents, or I never ate with my siblings, or I ate playing the game or whatever, or I ate in front of the TV and all these things. I'm like,
iPad kids.
I'm like, man, like my parents never, but I guess like it grew like an appreciation for what my parents did during that time, and it's probably something that I'll take from them. But kind of touching on moving out of.
That's crazy because I did the same thing like growing up too. Like
everybody at the table.
Everybody at the table, and I remember like in middle school, my mom like, because my dad didn't live with us, my parents weren't together, but but it was just like my mom, my sisters, and like in middle school, she stopped enforcing it. But sometimes we would still go like set the table like randomly. Just we'll all sit down and eat at the table. And just kind of just like you said, just talking and laughing. Like without my mom there, just me and my sisters. I'm just like, man. And you just brought up a core memory of us sitting at the table just being idiots. Just being idiots.
That dang dinner table, boy. But speaking of moving out of the house and you being here, when it comes to independence and things like that, how do you balance self-reliance and staying connected to community
Yeah.
here in OKC?
So I'll be like super vulnerable, like with you guys, right?
All right.
So moving to Oklahoma City was a highlight. It was honestly really good for me. But then what I realized was that it's actually really hard because now I got to start over. The people that were here that I did know, they all left. Like I had a good friend from college. He moved to Texas. I had another good friend. His mom, unfortunately passed away, and he moved back to Arkansas. So it's like all these people that I did know are no longer here. And so it's been tough and it's been a challenge. And there is a balance, right? Like it's cool. Like I'm a staff member, I'm kind of young. I can still kind of relate. Like it's different whenever I'm around. But ideally, like a group of students isn't going to be my friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now I got to find those people that are going to be like, okay, who can I really kind of lean in on and to find those people. And so in some ways I've done a bad job of it, but in other ways it's been a really good thing. Like, UV's a good example. UV and I have had a lot of good conversations and good talks, and UV's a more introverted person, and I'm significantly more extroverted than he is. But the other day we were having lunch. He said, "Shall we sit?" That man had a to-go box in his hand. I knew he didn't want to stay, but he opened the door. Like, hey, let's talk for a second. And I'm down to talk. So, you know what I mean? So I was like, sure, like I got time. You got time. Let's sit down. So it's been hard in some ways because I had to start over. So I had to start over again. 2020, start over. 2025, start over. And so, okay, like now we build these pieces back up. I've gone through it before. It's a less hectic situation. Things aren't closed. If I don't find community, it's my fault. If I don't go seek those people out, it's because I'm choosing not to. Right? It's easy to stay at home and say, oh, I got to take care of my dog. Sorry. She's asleep. Those 7-pound dog's not moving. Like, she's not going to do anything. I need those people. So I got to go search for them and seek them out and say, hey, these are the people I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. And so some of that is still kind of in the works, like building those relationships,
Yeah.
I love MacU and the community that exists here at the university. But I will also say that it's important to get a balance for me as a staff member, to not just see these people every single day. So I choose to pick churches that not a ton of MacU people go, because I have a little bit of separation of the place that I work, the place that I go worship, or the place that I work and the place that I go play is how people would phrase that.
Yeah.
So kind of build some of those,
What church do you go to?
So at the moment, I don't have like a place that I'm going to.
Yeah.
When it's a Sunday that I'm just kind of like, oh, I want to go somewhere easy, I go to Life Church. It's not a lot required out of me. But when I want to be known and seen, there's a church in Yukon that's called Together We Church. And so I've been going there on the days where I want to be seen and kind of like, see what I find.
You know what's so funny? As soon as I asked the question, the thought popped up in my head. That's kind of funny. He just said when he wants to get away from folks from the school, but I'm now putting out the place where he's going to church, so now everybody from the school can hear where he's going to church and pull up on him. Mm-hmm. That's kind of funny. Mm-hmm. So, outside of church and school, what are other potential areas that you see yourself finding community in?
That's a good question. Sometimes the friends that you become really close with are the people that you met through another friend.
Agree.
And so I think some of those people that, hey, we have common, like we know the same person. Let me see like how that goes. And then you become sometimes closer with that secondary friend that just kind of you just had a mutual friend, they become your closer friend than that first person was. And so sometimes even that helps, right?